Good afternoon. We are going to present our final project for the signature legal procedures applied, and we are going to present the import and export process. Our teacher is Licenciado José Magdaleno Hernández García, and this team is conformed by Miroslava Cardosa Martínez, Melanie Astrid Martínez Salas, and me, Valeria Samantha Zúñiga Reyes.
As my partner said, this is our final project. It's about the import and export process. We will define what is an import and what is an export. Also, we are going to include the process of each one of those. Before starting with the import process, it's important to define what is the import, and it can be divided in two: temporary import and definitive import. This last one being the chosen for our product. But what is an definitive import? Is the entry of goods of foreign origin with the purpose of remaining in the national territory for an unlimited period of time is considered as a definitive import regime. And what are some reasons or the reasons why a company decides to import? We can find situations such as to increase its business competitiveness, lack of inputs and suppliers in the local market, although a certain product or raw material are brought from abroad, it may be more economical to buy them abroad and import them. Also, a situation that I've seen in different companies is the lack of technology and also the high production cost in the local market. Next slide, please. What decided to import is bottles of glass. This is an industrial glass bottles from the German company Rosenthal. Are one of the most common types of containers used in the food industry. Are characterized for being a small diameter or to have a small diameter of the opening or mouth, which allows the packaging of liquid products. The specific characteristics are the capacity of 750 milliliters, capacity to spill of 780 milliliters, weight of 575 grams, diameter of 72.85 millimeters, and a height of 35 centimeters. Next slide, please.
Okay, now I'm going to explain the import process with a small flow chart. Okay, the first, or where we start at, is that our merchandise will pass through the customs. Then the merchandise will need to be reviewed by each country's customs authorities. After that, the importer will have to clear the goods to go through the customs. And then in the customs examination, well, this will be carried out, it's depending on the signal light. For example, is the signal light green? If the answer is yes, then the goods are going to be cleared from the customs. But if the answer is no, there will need to be starting the customs examination. Okay, during the customs examination, was there an error in the declaration? If the answer is no, then we will pass all the way to the resolution, and then the goods are going to be cleared. But if the answer is yes, our merchandise will be most likely to be confiscated due to the error in the declaration. Okay, after there was an error in our declaration, we will need to present means of defense to recover our merchandise. And after that, the PAMA, or the Customs Administrative Procedure, will need to be starting. And in here, we will need to present proofs, and we will need to wait for the resolution in order to know what our infractions and or sanctions are. Then after the PAMA is solved, we are going to pass to the resolution, and then finally we will get our goods cleared from the customs. Next slide, please. Okay, here I'm going to talk about a little bit about the documentation that is needed in order to import here in Mexico. And this is going to be specific for our product. Okay, first, we need to be updated with the tax authorities and with our tax obligations. Then we need to be registered in the Federal Taxpayer Registry, that is the RFC, and this is going to be in the Tax Administrative Service, the SAT. Okay, then we need to be registered also in the importers registers, and there is a specific importer registers, but in the case of our bottles, we don't need to be in the specific sector. Okay, then we need to comply with every single legal requirements that are established in the regulations of the customs law. Next slide, please. Okay, we need to present, or we need to have an automatic inventory control, and this will be for every single of the merchandise we are going to import. We also need to keep this inventory for at least 5 years. And okay, the non-tariff regulations and restrictions. Okay, these are the measures that help us to regulate and to restrict the entry or exit of the goods in our country. This can be for public health, for environmental health, and also for economic. It can be such as the Mexican official standards, the norms, the compensatory quotas, the country of origin marketing, the prior permits, the quotas, and also the certifications. The last one will be depending on the merchandise we're going to present. And in the case of our bottles, we don't need any specific certificate. Okay, then we have the commission conferred. Okay, the commission conferred is going to be registered in the General Customs Administration, that is the AGA. And this is the document that will help us to prove that we grant the assignment, or that we gave the permission to the customs broker to do our imports procedure. Okay, it will help us to precise and to calculate all the import taxes. We need to be really precise and need to be really careful with the calculation of these taxes, because in case that we pay less or we pay more, we can have a big sanction for the mistakes we can commit. Next slide, please. Okay, now we have the bill of lading. Okay, this is the BL, and is a document that the freight forward at the region issued, and it's going to be delivered to the supplier. This helps us to know in like the ship that our merchandise is going to be transported in. Then we have the certificate of origin. This is the document that helps us to prove the origin of the merchandise that we are trying to enter to our country. Okay, the commercial invoice. Okay, this will broadly include like the description of the merchandise, the price of the merchandise, the conditions under the merchandise was agreed, and also to have the information of the seller and the information of the buyer. And this is like the commercial invoice is like a legal document or like a contract between the seller and the buyer. Okay, after that we have the BUSEM and the COBE. Okay, we need to check that the import complies with all the provisions of the Mexican Foreign Trade Single Window, the BUSEM. And after we have confirmed that it complies with every single one, we can get a electronic value voucher, which we can prove all of the, that we comply with every single one and that we have all the documents. Okay, then the import declaration. This can be an import entry summary, that is the pedimento. And this is an electronic document which will help us to present or to prove that our merchandise is legally here in Mexico. And these are briefly all the documents we need for the importation of our product. Next slide, please.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about the case of exportation. And well, I'm going to start defining what is export, and also giving some points about the benefits that exporting to other country could give to a company. First of all, export refers to the activity of sending or selling a product in a land, in a foreign land. And this will give the benefits of getting access to the markets, to new markets, because it will be something different from the country that it is already established. And well, the following one is that it will help for the development and growth of the company by generating new income. This is because all the sellings increase, and everything. Every income came back to the company, to the main company that is in the country in which it was established. And the following one is that it doesn't depend. This activity make companies not only depend on the local market, and this is really important because sometimes we have problems in our country that could affect maybe the demand that exists from a product or service. But if we have like this plant, like if we make exportations, we are not going to fail as much as if we didn't. And what I am trying to say is that we will have like an extra opportunity to get income, even though we could have problems in land or country.
Okay, then we have the export process. This process can be divided in 10 stages, starting with the number one, that is the commercial closure of the operation. The procedure of exporting a product begins when two or more companies from different countries reach a sale agreement for any product or merchandise. To do this, they agree on delivery conditions at a specific price. Then we have the stage two, that is sending of the contract and documentary instruction. That is basically that the buyer should establish what international documentation will be required to import. This is once the agreement between the two parties has been closed. The next step will be to formalize the operation. Then we have the stage number three, that is the product manufacturing and packaging. The manufacturer must manufacture the product according to the characteristics agreed with the buyer, and also must carry out product packaging and labeling that is appropriate both to the buyer's condition and to the requirements of the country of destination. Next slide, please. The stage number four is the carrier nomination, on the nomination of the carrier. This is depending on the agreed Incoterm. The exporter or importer will have to nominate a freight forwarder or a transport company who will take charge of the international logistics. Then we have the stage number five, that is the transport support, and the loaded merchandise will be deposited in the maritime or airport terminal. Stage number six is the export procedures, and the customs procedures and export clearance are carried out. The registration of the dispatch will be carried out through the comprehensive customs management system. Next slide, please. The stage number seven is the stowage and loading of the merchandise. The stevedoring company will be in charge of moving the container or merchandise to house it within the international means of transport. Usually the means of international transport are the ship and the plane, as I said before, and the merchandise may travel in bulk in a container or by parcel. The stage number eight is the international transport, and it can be maritime, land, or by plane, depending on the means of transport used. On the other hand, it can be considered multi-purpose when the merchandise moves between several and different means of transport. The stage number nine is the download and import procedures. Upon arrival in the destination country, the stevedoring company will unload the goods, and then the goods will remain in the terminal at the disposal of the importation and custom personnel until the subsequent import clearance. And then is the delivery to the last one stage is the delivery to the customer. Once the merchandise is declared and suitable for use in the importing country, the transport company at the destination will collect the merchandise, the terminal, and will deliver it to the delivery point agreed with the importer. Next slide, please.
Okay, and now I am going to talk about the documentation used in the process of exportation. First of all, we have the commercial invoice, which is the document that, as Sam said before, it is the document that reveals the information about the merchandise, about the buyer, the seller, and specific information that could help at customs clearance and also transporting the merchandise. Then we have the packing list. This document helps drivers to know what are they transporting and what are where are the products, like in which type of boxes, in how many boxes do we have, and all this information about the merchandise, the package that could help us to put the merchandise on into a transport or to maintain it in an establishment. And the following one is the certificate of origin. This certificate that we could get into the country in order for the exporter to get a tariff preference in the country in which the merchandise is going to be imported. And this helps to get to show what the origin of the merchandise, and therefore to check if they can have a tariff preference or other type of fiscal facilities. The following one is the commission conferred. This is the one that that tells customs authorities that the customs broker is in charge of classifying and managing a certain type of merchandise. And finally, we have all those documents that can prove the accomplishment of non-tariff regulations and restrictions. There are not many regulations for the exporting merchandise, but there could be in other countries. So it will be necessary to get them in here in the country of origin in order to present them in the country of destination. Okay, so now we have the secretaries that are in charge of certain activities in the case of in both importing and exporting. And well, the first one that we have is the Secretary of Finance and Public Credit. And these have like a decentralized unit that is the Service Tax Administration, which is the one that checks that every company has their fiscal obligations in order, and also that every payment that must be like made, talking about taxes and other types of contribution, are made in a properly way. Also, this service has a unit, and a small unit, the name General Customs Administration, which is the one that is in charge of every activity that is done in customs, related to the documents, related to the merchandise, to the transporting, etc. Then we have the health secretary, which is in charge of checking that the sanitary certificates, and also to prove not only in merchandise that has been imported, but also to prove that the merchandise that is going to be exported is perfectly sanitary. The following one is the Secretary of Communications and Transport. This helps to tell to customs for which route can follow the certain type of merchandise that could be dangerous for people, and also for the natural resources that we have here in Mexico. Then we have the Secretary of Economics, that is the one that established, that is in charge of managing the free trade agreements and other types of trades that Mexico has with other countries. And also this provides certain type of programs in which companies can apply for if they want to get certain benefits, such as fiscal facilities or a certain type of trade preferences, Finally, we have these three secretaries. The first one is the Secretariat of Agriculture and Rural Development. That is the one that from which we can get the different sanitary certificates, such as the sanitary certificates for merchandise, like plants, fruits, food, etc. And also the sanitary certificates for both import and export. Then we have the Semarnat, which is the Secretary of Environment and Natural Resources, which is in charge of checking that imports and also export are not going to be dangerous for mainly natural resources, such as plants or any type of animal, etc. Finally, we have the Secretary of Foreign Relations, which is the one that helps the Secretary of Economy in the case of free trade agreements and also certain programs. This is the one that represents our country in an international agreements or among others. It is important to know that not every secretary that has been talked about is involved in procedures, in the procedures of export and import, but it depends on the goods that are going to be import or export.
Now we have the conclusions, and as my conclusion, I think that import and export processes are really important for international trade. But something that is even more important is the documentation that these processes must carry, because if any inaccurate data is found, the whole process can be stopped.
Okay, I think in this quarter we'll learn the importance of the legal documents and how it is related to every single process in an international trade, for example, the importation or the exportation. Also, we'll learn like the importance of every single secretariat and how it helps us to be adequated to the program or to the processes we need to do. And I think it's really important to put them in practice as we did in this project.
Okay, I think that this project is really important for us, so because it helps us to understand in a better way all the information that we have already learned in the quarter of this subject and other ones. And it is really important, like, to have an example in order for us to really understand in which step is each document and each tramit related to the process of exportation and importation.